Honestly, don't fucking play me. Come on.
Facts.
Look at me. Like, come on. Like, you
Literally look at you,
no.
bitch. Look at you, bitch. Yes. Yes.
I'd also like to claim this week as my birthday episode because we're recording it on my birthday weekend. Got my little hoochie mama dress on, even though I'm going to change out of it and into sweatpants after this. But we meet again.
We meet again. Welcome to Frequency Broads. Your broads that broadcast frequency are here. We're ready. It has been an interesting journey to record this episode. We don't always know the why, but we know that it's on purpose. So I think this is what, the fourth attempt?
Yep.
The fourth attempt, whether it was scheduling or tech issues but here we are. We made it.
Episode 8.
Episode 8. I am Tara and I'm here with Victoria. Welcome to Frequency Broads, episode 8, talking about something that we're both very passionate about. That S.E.X, sex and sexuality.
From an energetic standpoint at that.
Absolutely. I mean, as Victoria knows, I love when we're deepening our lessons or our messages and we're revisiting topics that maybe we didn't go into fully, but we've touched upon. I went back to season 1 on our intimacy episode, and we do talk about the energy of sex and how it's an exchange and you're transferring energetic blueprints from one person to another and being mindful of like who you're sharing that energetic cord with. So I'm interested to now see where we've evolved just in these few months as to like our perspective and our deepening and our knowledge around we really focus on intimacy, fear of intimacy, shame and guilt that comes up. And I know now we're going to focus more on sex, but clearly intertwined. So I'm interested to see how that kind of rolls out.
I'm also interested. I think going into these recordings, we never know what's going to come through us. And I feel like there's always something that happens in one of our lives, both of our lives, that prepare the information to come through us. And I'll jump right in with my freak check because I have mentioned I've been seeing someone for the past 2 months and things were going really well. And I was starting to fall in love with this person. And my intuition kept screaming at me, right? Here's another episode of, is this my intuition or my trauma? I just had this gut feeling that would not go away because he had told me he was on a dating app still, but a few weeks into us dating, I was like, that really bothers me. Are you planning on deleting it? Or are we like, what the fuck are we doing here? And he said he deleted it, but my intuition said, And so, of course, I did my own little investigating in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep last night. So I'm like sleep deprived. I'm fiery. I'm like, it's my birthday. And he had not deleted his dating app. And it's just like one little lie after another that I can't tolerate in my life. Like, first of all, don't ever lie to a Scorpio. Like, rule number 1 of Scorpio Club or the Zodiac, don't fucking lie to a Scorpio. Hello.
Yeah.
So I'm just processing everything. And it's just a wild roller coaster ride of emotions to go from experiencing like love and intimacy and this like deep connection that's building. And in last episode, we talked about, leaning into trust. And I remember saying something, having the courage to stay and work things out, but then having the courage to leave. And I guess I got to experience both in this relationship with this man. And, I'm excited to dig into all the things that have flooded into my field since last night. So before I get into that, give me your freak check, my love.
Well, I first want to say I'm so glad you touched upon how the last episode you were saying, oh, I just need to lean into trust. And sometimes we're on this spiritual path and we get these these insights or messages to lean into trust, and then we do and we get hurt, we start to doubt ourselves, we start to doubt the messages, we start to doubt our connection. But how beautiful that you're able to see, no, the message was trust. You just weren't sure who you were supposed to trust. And the answer was yourself, your gut, your intuition, you. So I'm so happy to see, although I know this is painful, I'm just so happy to see that even experiencing these really high highs and low lows, in a within a relationship perspective, that you're still able to find your grounded, your balance, and understand that you are in alignment with yourself, even if that requires some pain, some adjustment. So I appreciate you being vulnerable as always. Um,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I didn't know if
Yeah.
you like took a deep breath. I'm like, you got something to say, girl, go
No,
for it.
I was
But
like, yep, all spot on there. Yep. Yep.
yeah. Um, and one more thing to reflect on you before my freak check that doesn't really tie to anything, but it's just interesting that I also have been discussing and thinking about my own relationship, so to say, to my emotions,
Mm,
um, and how I do feel the full capacity of everything. And me being the voice, I'm very vocal in that. So with Andrew and I, with everything we've been going through, and I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but I can only imagine from his perspective. Now, yes, what I was saying is valid and all that and true, but to go from me fully expressing that deep feeling of love and gratitude to then feeling the discomfort and being very clear and communicating this discomfort. And it must sound like, because it felt like for me, this huge flip flop. But coming out of that, I feel really grateful. And I've been even talking to the kids about it because it's Halloween and ghosts. And we were talking about how ghosts can't have emotion and they're just
mm,
watching us live our lives. And like they don't get to taste and feel and smell and touch and just knowing that the experience of actual emotion is happening because we're human. And even though it's extreme, it's actually something so beautiful and to be grateful for. So connection there. But I'll drop a quick free check. I'm feeling really good. It is officially rainy season. I love rainy season. It has been warm and rainy, but not hot rain, not muggy. Oregon is not muggy like New York. So I've just been loving standing out in the rain and just like looking at the leaves as like the rain is pouring through, that the colors here in Oregon are so gorgeous. There's like this ombre situation on every tree. It's like
mm-hmm.
crazy. So I'm feeling really good. I had a weird interaction 10 seconds ago that I just let Victoria know. I went to go print out my notes. I barely ever write notes for the podcast, but sex and sexuality, so much was flooding for both of us that we were trying to be organized. And I said to myself, maybe I'll print out because I actually typed them out. That's how much it was. And I walk up to like our business center in our community and I open the door and like 20 really nicely dressed up women with like sashes and champagne like are in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Like that's weird. Maybe they're doing something. And then as I approached, they all stopped and just stared at me. And I'm in sweatpants and fuzzy jacket and a fuzzy hood. And I'm like looking like a gremlin. And I'm just like, I'm here to use the computers. And they were like, no, this is a bridal shower. And I was like, this is awkward. I gotta go. So we're gonna bear with me here because there is a lot that I want to say and there is a lot that I want to reference. So I'm gonna do the best that I can and make sure I hit all the points that I can today. So thanks for hanging in with me, pals. That's my freak check.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love your top today. I love your little bralette.
Thank
Very
you.
sexy, cool. We're wearing
Can
complementary
you
colors too.
can you
Are they
see?
little hearts? Are they
They
little
are
black
little
hearts?
hearts.
My queen of hearts.
Little
Love.
hearts. Thank you. I was like a little sexy, a little lovey, you know what I mean? I call
Mhm.
this brought to you by one of my students who gave me this name. I call these my bear ears, my hair, because they're not full space buns like I have the rest of my hair down, but I got my little
That's
bear ears
precious.
on. So
Aw.
I'm ready. Okay, so if we're looking at sexuality as a concept, the first thing that that really just like came to my mind were two things actually. One is this TikTok that Victoria, I think you shared with me, that I'm going to reference in a moment. And I would love to put in the description to shout out this guy, because the way he talks about trans and queer and sexuality and exploration in that way
Yeah.
from a biological standpoint is absolutely beautiful. And I do want to, like, I took some notes on that, so I do want to point on that. But something that really stood out to me and I've been paying attention to is my students. My students, I work in a private school, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, so you can imagine the type of demographic that I'm working with. And watching these students have no boundaries in a good way for their sexuality, for their gender, for their exploration is so absolutely beautiful. And I hear a lot of teachers or parents talk about it, not in a negative way, but just like referencing, like, holy shit, like, I would say like above 90% of the student body is under the umbrella of queer in some facet. It's really interesting. And the way that they have these knowledge of asexual and demisexual and pansexual and like just like all this, and like, and being able to have these conversations made me really realize the beauty that they're finding in someone's soul, that they're able to connect. Like, it is so far gone to them that, like, yes, there is a sexual attraction and we do have preferences, and we do, whether you're gay or lesbian, like, there is that concept to it. But at the same time, when you're so young, they're able to just explore. And I'm watching them make these deeper soul connections, because even if they are preferred to one gender, they are so interested in getting connected to the person instead of the body, instead of the genitals, instead of all that. And it has been so beautiful to watch them explore freely, changing their pronouns frequently, or their preferred name, or their sexuality. And like, it's totally fine. It's totally acceptable. And they know, they're like, I'm just figuring it out. I'm testing it out in a respectful and honest way. And that was so beautiful to see in we've talked about Gen Z many times, but just like this concept of, it's almost like labels only work until they don't.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, okay, I at the beginning of the frequency pods, I said I was bi, but like now really thinking on it, like, first of all, I'm just sexual, period. Like, I don't need a label for that. If I needed to, it would probably be more pansexual, because I love non-binary people. But it's watching them say like, oh, actually, I'm, gay. And then like a month or two later, they're like, you know what? Gay doesn't fit I don't fit in that box anymore. To see that is so incredible, because I've witnessed so many of my friends and family have the opposite effect, where they've felt liberation and freedom in their gender and sexuality and found their niche. And then when they felt it wavering, it was like an identity crisis. I thought I was a lesbian. How am I attracted to this man? Like, am I like going against my community? And like, that's so painful, because they've lived in boxes that didn't fit for so long. So to now put them in a new box that they have to stay in. So it just reminds me, and like something that I want to remind everyone, is a label only works until it doesn't. A label helps you find community, helps you understand and learn yourself, but it is not fixed. It requires fluidity and flexibility. And I see that in this next generation. And I hope that us as adults can step into that as well.
Hmm. In all facets of life, right? In all the boxes we've been put into.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Beautifully stated and a great perspective. It's always good to have a pulse on what other generations or just like groups of people that some of us don't necessarily interact with very
Right,
often. And I know if you have kids, you're listening to this, you're probably like, oh, yeah, this is what I'm seeing too in my
right.
kids' friends group or your kids themselves. But I mean, I'm so excited for Gen Z. Like
I
I
know.
literally I'm like dedicating my career to that generation and ready to pass the torch to fight the good fight, but also just to grant the freedom to experience life in whatever way that we choose to.
Absolutely. Mm-mm. Which takes me to this TikTok that you shared. And excuse me for not having the name of the man who was speaking about it, but has a biology background, and he talks about how we're seeing this influx of more transgender people, of just more queer, and like just a broadened spectrum of gender and sexuality. And from a biology standpoint, people tend to use the word mutation. And when we think of mutation, we think of something bad, right? Like, oh, it mutated because it was wrong. But that's actually how we've survived, and how every species survives is it's more about adaptation than it is about anything. So our bodies as humans, they're and DNA, we pass down these genes, and some of them are very fixed. And he uses the example of the Hox gene, which is about where your spine is in relation to your limbs and other things like that. That is always like, I don't want to use the word always, as we know, but like that is like pretty much guaranteed to be proper, right? Like to like that's fixed. But then you have the smell gene he uses the example of. Every person in your family is going to have a different sense of smell. And that mutation is done on purpose for survival, for us to be able to
Mm.
smell different foods, different warning signs. So it's actually for the betterment. And us as a communal tribal species, our adaptations, our mutations in our biology are for the collective good, not in a spiritual way, like literally, like the tribe needs to be safe. So we need to have mutations in certain genes to have a hand on everything, to be able to see all those perspectives, right? So when we look at the concept of sex and gender, we have come up in a cis-normative world. And that's created some problems, as anything would. I'm not blaming like cis-normative, like you could be cis, like whatever. But that mutation, that adaptation of transgender and queer people are the new perspective to the societal issues we've created from a cis-normative perspective. So, yes, we may be seeing an influx of queer people for many reasons. Maybe it's because they are just accepted now and they're more out of it. Maybe they have the opportunity to explore it. Maybe it is like whatever. Maybe it's a spiritual thing where we're awakening to both the divine feminine and masculine within us. Regardless of that, it is a beautiful opportunity to get a new perspective, because everything, we lived in a patriarchy, everything was about gender, everything was about the way you look, what race you were, your class. Right now we have a whole new group coming in and emerging that doesn't fit any of those places, whether it be mixed race, mixed religion, or fluid sexuality or gender. You're now providing the collective, the tribe, a new perspective on the traumas that we've been facing, on the problems that we've been having. When he said that, I cannot think about that TikTok. I have shown it to the children. I'm like, when people are shitting on you for your ways of life, look at this. This is literally what as a species we need right now, is to be able to heal and conquer through trans and queer people. And it's just
Mhm.
it was so powerful. So I'm going to share it in the description below, because it, or on our Instagram, we can share it as well, because it
Let's do
really is
both.
just, yes, because it is really just so powerful. And then again, seeing that fluidity teaches us, like you said, a label only fits until it does. The box only works until it doesn't. We always say, think outside the box. These are the people outside the box. Why are we ignoring them? Why are we suppressing them? Well, we know why, but you know, they're here to think outside the box, to be outside the box, to create something bigger and new and encompassing everyone, except not just those who are in that center circle there.
So if this idea of those outside the box make you uncomfortable, or you just cannot begin to conceptualize this way of living and existing, I encourage you to really sit with what thoughts or programs that you still carry that hinder you from at least having some compassion or understanding, um, for so many humans going through this experience right now. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad they're not alone. I'm glad. And I mean, here's the thing, Portland is just, we're very fortunate to be where we are and have so many accepting people here. But I know across the country, So
Mhm.
many young kids are not as fortunate to have that community, and it takes one person saying, "It's okay. I love you anyways." That's it.
Mhm.
Well, as I was preparing for this episode, I think the first or second time we were planning to record, I was sitting at one of my favorite little country western bars outside under this magnolia tree that is absolutely one of my favorite places in all of town. And um, I was sitting there by myself, just on my notes app. I love my notes app. And there was a group of girls, and I was obviously eavesdropping a little bit. They're loud, so it wasn't hard to do. And I heard, and of course, I'm like preparing for this topic on sexuality, and the girl says, you know, even when you have sex, it can never be just sex. And I was like, yeah, thank you. Thank you
Oof.
for putting it just so simply, because it never is just sex.
Mm-mm.
There is such a responsibility that comes with sharing your DNA, your frequency, your physical body, the sacred genital area that has been shamed and cursed for so many,
Mhm.
like hundreds of thousands of years. And I think women know more than men because we're receiving, and if we're just strictly talking heterosexual sexual interactions here, but like the fact, well, or it could go any which way, but like the fact that we're receiving uh, a man's DNA and the way that we do, and of course, this is top of mind given my current situation, but
Mhm.
when you receive another person's DNA, whether it be spit, semen, whatever, your body takes that in. And I
Mhm.
know I've mentioned, I think it was the DNA episode where when a man ejaculates in a woman, they have found sperm or semen, I still haven't figured out which one, ends up in the brain. And what is so fascinating about this, I mean, scientifically that's been proven, but it got me thinking about the whole spectrum of from magic to sex magic to light magic, and like using the portals in your body, which I know we're going to talk about. But
Mhm.
this idea that you are, and as someone who's pretty intuitive and knows how to work with someone else's DNA, and that's how I feel like I was so easily able to pick up on this man's lies because
Mm.
I am carrying his DNA to some degree currently, right now, before I do a candle cord cutting ceremony and just completely release him and detox him from my field. But I intuitively can feel, because his DNA is in me, the
Mhm.
receptors and how my like intuitive center picks up on what he's telling me and how that aligns with his truth and the truth I'm feeling within me. And I know we've talked a lot about the like energetic center of the gut. And if we look at the first chakra, which is responsible for safety, security, your home, rooting, grounding, and then
Mhm.
the second chakra was very much focused on your reproductive center and your creativity, which are one and the same. We
Mhm.
love talking about our creative centers, but the energy can sometimes get stuck in the guts, and you will literally have like a just want to vomit feeling when that energy is mutated in a way where you no longer feel safe and can trust the person. And that is exactly what my body is going through right now. So it's so top of
Mm.
mind. And I want to share this experience with you because I don't hear this talked about nearly enough. Um, and those of you who have had this experience, I really honor your process and how you've been able to release it. And if you haven't released it, it's never too late. I think that there's so many different rituals and practices to either call your energy back or to release whatever energy is still stuck and stagnant inside of you and just no longer has a purpose being in your energetic field.
Mhm. Well, I wanna, uh, kind of broaden that a little bit, and I know you mentioned, like, heterosexual, and then you're like, "No, it's actually for everyone," because it is, right? The
Yeah.
reason as women that we may experience it more is because we are just more in tuned with our intuition. Now, any gendered person of any sexuality who can tap into their divine feminine and into their intuition will be able to experience that very similarly. As soon as you make that energetic exchange with someone on a physical level, like sex or any, like, doesn't need to be full penetration, but just like the act of getting intimate physically with someone, you are creating that energetic cord. That's why Victoria mentioned the cord cutting, because there's a cord between the two of you. So if you're able to tap into that divine feminine, I'm sure there's plenty of women out there who, I wasn't for a long time tapped into my divine feminine and wasn't really realizing the energy that I was holding, right? So for anyone who's in a sexual experience, taking a moment to check and say, how do I feel after this? How do I feel after? Am I left drained? Am I left feeling shameful, guilty? Am I left excited, euphoric? Now, the question of why is another question, right? But the first thing you got to do is ask yourself, how do I feel after sex? Absolutely.
Or before. I like the saying, and
Mhm.
I don't know where I heard this, but foreplay begins the moment sex ends. If you're being intimate with someone, foreplay begins the moment sex ends. And I say this, and I know, Tara, you've been in a monogamous relationship for 6 years now, but something that's very common with men where you're in a situationship or you're just simply fucking, they have this like default to get up and run after ejaculating.
Oh, hold on. I
You
have been
know
in a
this.
relationship for 6 years, and I'll tell you, it should up. I'm like, "Buddy," and then he's like, "Oh, sorry. Yep, come back." There's just like this. Yeah, no, I feel that. Can you I just don't know if my brain is comprehending right now. Can you explain the foreplay quote again? Can you just like deepen that a little?
Yeah, sure. So the moment that sex or intimacy ends is when foreplay begins, meaning that how you're treated after you've been intimate with someone sets the stage for the next time you have an interaction or
Oh.
intercourse.
Mhm. Okay.
And the communication in between, I think, is huge. But even just simply cuddling, because I know some partners don't like to cuddle post sex, and I'm like, well, that makes me feel like a hooker. So
You're like, "No, I need you here so I know that you're not gonna, like, go out the door."
bounce,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that. I was just having a hard time of like, "What?" Um, let's go to the very beginning of that intimacy experience. And when we are attracted to someone, yes, it's a physical thing that we're looking at, right? Before we even talk to them, we have this attraction, but it comes from a frequency standpoint. It comes from what you're projecting outwardly in your energy that is pinging in somebody else. Doesn't mean that it's good, bad, or indifferent. There is something you're projecting that is matching whatever someone else is projecting. Um, and I recognized this very quickly, even before I understood the concept, when I started dating Andrew, because I loved going out. I loved meeting people. I loved hooking up. I loved like one night stands. That was like my life. I was like, yep, I'm living my best life. Um, and when I went out, I would, dress however I wanted to dress and whatever. And it was like or moths to a flame. It was like, like one walk away and the next one would come. And it'd be like, yay, feeding my ego and making me feel good about myself. Yay. As soon as I started dating Andrew, I would dress the same because it's not like I went out and bought a new wardrobe. I'm still getting drunk because being sober at the bar was fucking weird. And I'm still dancing because that was my favorite thing to do when I was at the bar. And that's when guys would always come up to me when I was dancing. When I tell you, it went from like, and this is not real numbers, but just an example, went from like, say, getting hit on like 10 times a night to like one, if that. And at first I was like, what the fuck? And it was always a joke like, oh, you're giving off taken. You're giving off that you're taken. You're giving off that you're single. You're giving off this or that. But now when I really think about it, I'm like, oh my God, my frequency was not pinging for sexual relationship or intimacy or romance. It was pinging for pleasure in a fun way and a playful way and an innocent way. And the amount of guys who came up to me and we were having friendships, and we're be joking and talking about like our other friends hooking up or whatever, and there was no sexual attraction from either of us, I really truly believe that, was tenfold. It was so interesting, that playful, joyful, where they'd be like, girl, you're a good dancer, and then we'd be having a dance battle as opposed to some guy sneaking behind me and grabbing my hips. You know what I mean? Like the frequency in which I was projecting, even though nothing else had changed, gave a different response.
I guess my experience with that is anytime I've been in a relationship, I completely shut off my sexual energy, in that I am so like I'm just not receptive to anyone's attention. I don't make eye
Mhm.
contact, and it was actually quite detrimental to me professionally, even though it wasn't
Mm.
sexual, right? But I still have
Right.
to interact with men all the time, and I just got weird. Like I got very like shut off, and I lost my little spark and bubble, because it somehow like proved my loyalty, that by like dimming this part of myself and not interacting with a person that is of the gender that I'm attracted to, would somehow like be a threat to the relationship. And going into what I thought was about to be my next relationship, I was like, I don't want to live and operate that way. Like I have integrity, I have respect for me
Mhm.
and you, and I can still have these very innocent, fun, playful interactions with men, women, whatever, and it not be or not lead to sex. Like it just
Mhm.
I finally found that little like balance of the play, and well, I'll keep practicing it next relationship, but yeah, it is interesting how you emit that frequency.
Yeah.
So I was, yeah, I'm
And
not
to
surprised to hear.
completely like, and hearing you completely close yourself off and having issues, say, at work or things like that, you just said it. That sexual chakra is also the creative chakra. That's your
Yeah,
inspiration. That's your motivation to like
expression.
expression. Exactly. So when you feel you need to shut off that whole energetic center
Mhm.
because the sexual part of you is committed to an individual person, that's not healthy either, right? That's creating that blockage for everything else. So I'm happy that although this isn't working out, it was the first step to you recognizing, like, no, I could still even be a sexual human. Even if that means that my sexual experience is just with you, I could still feel sexy in my body. I could still move my
Mhm.
body in an intimate and sensual way. And that does not invite anyone into my situation. And understanding that frequency is so nuanced that you can still embody that but not ping others for a sexual experience or romantic or intimate space, because that's what I was still very sensual. I was still in my little tiny crop top bralette situation, twerking on the floor, but the guy next to me was acting like a monkey instead of trying to grind me. It's just a weird situation. But I'm glad that you recognize that.
Mhm.
So I have a question for you, and we can cut this out if it's too personal.
Okay.
um when was your, we'll start as like an easy one. Like when was your, how old were you when you felt your first like attraction in like a energetic way, like, oh, I like this person, or like, because obviously when you're young you're not like, I'm gonna fucking bone this person, right? Like when was that first time that you were like, ooh, I think I have an attraction or I like someone? And also when was the first time you started exploring your sexual pleasure and sexuality in your own body, if you don't mind sharing?
This is deeply personal.
It is.
Um, well, I initially really liked girls. I mean, I liked my girlfriends because I think, we all think like boys have cooties, or if you're a boy, you think girls have cooties. And
Mhm.
I was a huge fan of Friends growing up, and I
Hell
probably
yeah.
watched that show like at too young of an age to really understand what was going on. But as you know, like Ross's ex-wife or first wife married a woman, and I thought
Mhm.
to myself, oh my gosh, how amazing would it be if I got to marry my best friend in like second grade.
Mhm.
So I was already just exploring the idea of what a like happy relationship would look like, because
Mm.
I'm a I love relationships. And
Mhm.
now I'm like, actually, that is probably a better idea for me than trying to date these fucking idiot men. But anyways, I know there's a good one out there, and I'm waiting for you. We ready? You ready to take me out on that date? Let's go. I know Tara put me out on like another episode in season 2, and I was like,
I'm like, no, legitimately. If you got a good energy and you're a good guy, Where are
and
you?
you're honest,
And
like
you're
it
honest.
pains you to lie. That's the thing. Like I grew up with really intuitive parents. I could not lie to them. And
Mhm.
anytime I would lie, they'd be like, "You know
You
what I mean?
bitch.
You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So thank God for that. And to answer your second question, I'm very grateful for my mother who was always very comfortable talking about sex and
Mm.
sexuality and sexual expression and, teaching me that it is okay to explore my body and there's no shame in that. Just don't do it in public or,
Mhm.
be selective with depending what age you are with who you're sharing that with. But I think I was so young, like 3, 4, and I know other parents whose kiddos have like right because it feels good. It's a stimulating
Yeah.
area, and when you activate that, pleasure center, like it's fun and it's play and it's innocent.
Mhm. Well, look at that. I just pointed to myself because I was right there with you, like 3, 4, 5, and then it was like a nonstop thing, which is totally age appropriate for you to be exploring
Mhm.
your body in that way. Here's 2 women who start exploring that pleasure and from an energetic standpoint, that second chakra at a young age, not being shamed for it by our mothers. Thank you, moms. We love you. And now here are 2 very powerful and creative women, right? So, like, and look at all the women who have been shamed for their sexuality and are working small because they've been told you got to be small. So, I'm not saying go out there and like tell your kids to be doing things, but we don't want to have that shame. And honestly, Victoria mentioned this word, and I want to come back to it. It being your sacred site. Your genitals are like a sacred site, like you would go to the pyramids or Sedona or, any of these energetic vortexes. You go there, and there's an energy exchange with you and this sacred space, and what you're learning from it, and what you're experiencing from it, and taking away like that energy with you, exploring that sacred site, not talking children necessarily, but like as an adult, being able to explore that sacred site and say, what do I like? For like on a basic level, what do I like? Can I explore different things? Have I been actually pleasured and pleased by what I've experienced in the past? And then like once you understand what you like, you can set those clear boundaries for your sacred land, right? If you think about these sacred areas, they're like, oh, no litter, no smoking, no, right? There's boundaries. Don't touch this wall. Don't walk this way.
Mhm.
It's literally like that. It's setting the boundary where it's like, I don't like to be touched this way, or, like don't enter, whatever it is. You have to learn this sacred site and honor it as a sacred site to learn the boundaries before you start experiencing it with other people. Because otherwise, you're defacing that sacred site. You're not honoring it properly. And that's where we can damage the area, not in a physical way, but in an energetic way, damage this space. And it could become traumatic to get into that zone again or become discomforting to be in that zone again.
Well, I like that you mentioned exploring your body first before you explore with anyone else, because if that's all you really know is someone else pleasuring you, it really hinders your experience in tuning in with your own sexual power. And I think
Mhm.
that the more that you learn self pleasure in all of its different forms and ways, um, it it creates this opportunity, and it's almost I look at it as a meditation because it is a way that I'm tuning in with my energetic center in such a potent, intentional way that there's like limitless potential that comes from tapping in to these energetic
Mhm.
centers in our body. And I think that knowing how to activate this sacred zone in your body and then moving that energy up into your solar plexus, into your heart, into your throat, into your third eye, and then knowing how to manage the energy that comes out of your crown, because
Mm.
oftentimes what will happen and why you might feel depleted after sex is because you're not only having this like release come out of like the bottom part of your energetic center, but then whatever's coming out here. So you're literally just being scattered out.
Mhm.
And to really harness your own sexual energy, you learn to play with bringing that energy back in, having that energy maybe expand or explode out of you, but keeping it in that energetic bubble, keeping it in your aura, and having your protective wall of your aura bounce it back to you. You just
Mm.
become this super human,
Ooh.
powerful, magnetic, sensuous, beautiful creature that it's actually, I think, one of the most potent forms of magic and meditation.
I so that's something, right, as I've learned and grown more about energetics and experiencing that with my partner, yes, I focused on bringing the energy up and out, and I was mindful of keeping it, but even just giving thank you for giving that visual, because even though, yes, I was doing that, I feel like having that visual is gonna empower me even more, is gonna allow me to, like, "Okay, this is exactly what I'm doing, and this is how we're gonna bounce it back," and, like, all of that beautiful energy from myself that I've been pulling up, but also from my partner that I trust and hold sacred space with is going to fuel up and through me. Can I read you this quote that I found today?
Please.
By honoring your own holy desires of pleasure, you become soul satisfied and divinely guided to open the doors to your fullest potential and highest timeline. So I feel like that opening of the door, that bouncing back is soul satisfying. It's literally feeding your soul. You're like, okay, we're moving energy, but we're also taking it back and we're not fragmentating ourselves. And you're so right that you need to know how to do it for yourself before you go to someone else. And I have
Mhm.
a great way to learn how to do that. And it's a really simple practice that you can do by yourself or with a trusted partner, right? We're talking about learning about yourself, but sometimes it's helpful when you have someone that you trust. It doesn't need to be a sexual partner either. It's called pleasure mapping. And it's taking different sensations of touch or different sensations on the skin, like grazing with the fingernails, tapping, squeezing, massaging, blowing, biting, whatever, humming against, whatever it is, and literally drawing out a map of your body and saying, in this area, I like to be kissed. In this area, I like to be pressed. I like to feel the pressure in this area, and literally mapping out where your body feels certain type of pleasure because for me, I like when my arms are grazed with like the nails, like, that like soft, like, but if someone did that on my legs, like, I think that would just tickle. Like, I'd be like, ugh, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Mhm.
how can you communicate that to someone else and say, this is what gets me in the mood. This is what entices me. This is what makes me feel relaxed so I can ease into pleasure if you don't know it yourself. So making time for yourself and your partner and saying this time is going to be specifically for intimacy. This time is going to be for us to like feel into that space. It doesn't have to be about sex. Maybe it leads to sex, whatever it does, but it's about feeling into that and learning your body. So that way, as the portals energetically are opening, you can also cradle and tend to the physical body in a way that's supporting the energy that shifts through those energetic centers or portals or vortex, whatever you want to call it. Like thinking about needing to explore yourself as someone with a vagina, right? Like I say with a vagina because not all women have vaginas and not all people with vaginas are women.
Mhm.
So it's just that is a more integrate sacred site to explore. So it's really important if you have a vagina to take that time to explore it.
Or if you have a penis, don't think that what you see on porn is actually how stimulation needs to
Yeah.
happen. Which going back to my whole situation right now with the person I was seeing and, dating apps and hookup culture,
Hmm.
hookup culture has completely polluted the idea of sexual liberation into having people convinced that having sex with whomever you please, whenever you please, is this like way of expressing your sexual freedom. But really, it's ultimately just poor spiritual hygiene. And you are energetically clouding up your field in ways that you just, I don't think you can conceptualize the ramifications of having so many people's DNA imprints affect your energetic field. And to then remember the map when we were learning sex ed, where it'd be like two people have sex, but then they've had sex with six people, and then they've had sex with,
Mhm, mhm.
and that whole like filter down of like how it shows how connected we are, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure they
yeah.
used the same map when COVID came out.
Oh
Just
my
saying.
god, they
Do you remember
probably
that?
did.
They did for sure. Um, it just, I want to really remind you of, and I think we've all gone through phases, right? And I think you have to kind of learn. Well, no,
Mhm,
you don't have to learn the hard way. Let me back up. Many of us do learn the hard way through
mhm.
experience. And that's the whole point of life, right? Is to
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
all sensations. But controlling and understanding what you have control of experiencing is what I'm ultimately reminding you of right now. And
Mhm,
when you have your sacred energetic bubble clear and in your power and not kind of stamped up with everyone's imprints,
mhm,
you are just a more authentic, loving human that feels so comfortable in your skin.
mhm,
And so I'm being reminded of that right now, and um, really going to take some time this weekend to sink into clearing my field from all past imprints. And
mhm.
I don't even know how to end that. I just want a happy ending
Literally, in many ways, yes.
in all the ways.
Yeah. Well, I think the key word there is energetic hygiene, right? Like looking at that. I think it was what was it for like STDs, that map where they were like, and this one, then you spread it that
Probably.
way. It was probably
Yeah.
for that. The map of people, right? It's not about you being at the top and like, okay, I can't have this many people at the bottom of my period. For fuck, like who cares? Sure, sure. But
Hmm.
what Victoria is saying is in between you should be energetically cleansing yourself of that. Every time you have a sexual experience with someone, you are getting their DNA imprint. And that could be a good thing if it's done right.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And that's
Yes.
why Victoria keeps mentioning this energetic hygiene. Because if I go and I sleep with someone and it makes me learn about myself and it makes me learn about what I want and it makes me experience something new that's going to teach me. And then I say, thank you very much, cleanse, 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 moving on, new bubble, fresh, back to myself. Now I'm going to experience another partner. And it doesn't have to be like, okay, I wait a month and I've cleansed myself. Like whatever hygiene or practices you have for yourself, but disconnecting when it no longer is serving you. I've had plenty of friends with benefits that have served me for years, years, because we had a trusted friendship. We had a respected space together. We were both honoring the situation, even if it was just for pleasure and joy. So, holding that, I didn't need to cut the ties every time I slept with him. But the one night stands where I learned a little bit about myself, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. And I'm never going to see you again. All right, let's cut it. And while I'm cutting it, I say, whatever's serving me can stay. Whatever I learned, whatever DNA imprints, whatever frequency they gave me as medicine can absolutely say, but all the other bullshit is gone. I don't need it. And I don't need the consistent cord between us feeding and fueling one another and like draining me of my energy that isn't serving me. So that's why Victoria is no joke. I mean, she's experiencing it out there. Not to like put it on you, Victoria, but like she's experiencing it out there. She's talking from experience. She's not saying like, yes, you were with her on her journey for celibacy, but that was for her.
God.
That was for her to like claim her own power. It had nothing to do with anything else. That was her version of some deep energetic detox and refueling. So it's not about should I have a lot of sex with people or should I not? Should I be monogamous or should I be open? It's about are you paying it's about are you paying attention to how you feel before, during, after, And when it's not serving you, are you cleansing and cutting that shit out? Because it is, like we said, running through all those portals. And if you're not, all that shit is running through all those portals.
So, one way that I like to quickly clear my energy is through breath. And I like mirror work as well because it creates that the
Mm-hmm.
circle of energy around me, right? And I'm able to amplify my energy that much more so that when I'm going in with the intention of clearing, it's that much more amplified. Because I'm in my sacred bubble, and in the same practice of learning how to move the energy up to your crown and back down to your first chakra, same practice goes for
Mm-hmm.
energetic clearing, right? Like you really just intentionally move the breath and your focus to these energetic centers, and you'll start to like hear and see and whatever, Claire, you are most in tune with.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start to get messages, and that is, I think, one of the coolest ways to learn about yourself is when you get these intuitive hits or downloads, and it's coming simply from intention and breath.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I learned? Breath is the only thing right now, although they haven't done enough sound healing research, in my opinion. But anyway, um, breath scientifically right now is the only thing that is proven to simultaneously affect the brain chemistry and the nervous system.
Mm.
So, yeah, that is like the quickest way to tap in and be able to realign, reconfigure, get the shit out of your way.
And isn't it so funny how when you need to breathe the most, that's when your breath becomes shallow and stuck
Yes.
and stagnant. It's like that's always the best indicator. Like all you can do is take it. And if you're like, I don't have the mental capacity to do breath work, go do some cardio, run around the block. Like,
Yeah. You'll be
I don't know,
breathing. You'll
do
be
some
breathing.
do some stairs. I don't know.
Do some stairs. But I want to talk about um the energetic vortexes and portals and chakras that we're talking about, and how when we are having sex with someone, their energetic blueprint, DNA, key codes, whatever it is that they're holding in their energy is coming through your body. And Victoria talked about how it usually stops in the gut and with intention can move upward. But something that I didn't think about until this episode, until like really sitting with it this episode. So the first episode of Intimacy, I was like, I am getting other people's shit and this is crazy and blah, blah, blah. But I also recognize now that moving energy, even if you were pleasuring yourself, right? So it's not coming from anybody else, moving the energy through your chakras, having sex, moving that Kundalini energy from your base of your spine is also going to push out the blockages of your own chakras. So that is why it is really important to recognize how you feel during, after, before, because if it's not the individual person that's making me feel like shit, but every single time I'm feeling like shit, no matter who it is, then what in that chakra or that vortex or energy center is it coming up for me? What is this experience trying to show me, is trying to teach me? Because a lot of times, from personal experience, a lot of times the things that were coming up were mostly my shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why when we're having sex with someone, yes, it's important to be mindful of who they are and the energy they're giving you, but it's so important to have a safe space because in those moments after sex, all of that energy is rising to the surface. It's risen, rosen. It's risen to
Rosin.
whatever
Just
rosin,
kidding.
to whatever point you need to be facing right now. So not feeling like you're safe afterwards when you're in that vulnerable space, when you're getting intimacy for the next time, it's going to deter you from exploring that or feeling comfortable and not having shame and guilt and fear around it because maybe you've made it to your heart chakra and now all the shit that's blocking your heart chakra is coming up and you're being triggered and you're not with someone that you feel safe or in a space that is a safe place for you. That's going to continue to create more blockages because you're like, "Oh my god, this is terrifying." You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's why I mean, it's happened slightly before, but, like, ever since I've been with Andrew and had a safe space with him, I kid you not, every single time I come, I'm crying or laughing after, to the point where we've need to had a conversation. He's like, "Why are you hysterical laughing?" I'm like, "Because that's what it brought up for me." I was like, "That's that release of energy. I need to release this energy that has been cultivated within me, and it's either gonna come through tears or laughter." And that tears doesn't mean sadness. It could mean full euphoria. It can mean happy. It can mean love. But, like, I am now in a safe place where, like, he just holds me while I'm hysterical laughing or crying, and he knows it's an energetic thing. It's a release thing. But if I wasn't in a safe place and began to shame myself, I would have never been able to explore that. And I would have been creating more blockages in these vortex energetic centers.
For sure. I'm so glad you're aware of that. And taking responsibility for your own shit, and that it sometimes is your own stuff that comes up, not the other person.
Yeah.
And being grateful for having the safe space to experience these sensations and insights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Andrew, shout out to Andrew.
Shout out to Andrew. We've been able to, because of that safe place, um, I have been able to like work on bringing that energy up. And that happens by extending your pleasure, being able to relax, breathing, and having the intention and visualization, thank you, Victoria, to bring it up, out, and back into yourself. And then it's about, not that it needs to be a whole thing, but like taking a moment to just be like, okay, how do I feel now? What did this sexual experience bring up for me? Because realistically, we've talked about this many times, your beliefs create the conditions in which you experience reality, right? So it creates your reality. That's what we mean by that. So if I had a sexual experience that brought up something painful and I wasn't in a safe space to process and hold that and accept that, I'm now going to assume that sex is painful in an energetic or emotional way. And then every time, that's the reality and belief that I'm creating. That's what I'm going to experience. But when you're able to sit there and say, what has this sexual experience taught me about myself or my interactions with the world? Then you're allowed to kind of start moving that.
And I know so many people approach sex just from the mindset of, I want to come, or I want to get off, or I want to have this release of some kind. But if you're looking for one of the best ways to heal and tune into your power, it is through pleasure, and it is
Mm-hmm.
through intentional sex or lovemaking. And I mean, get off all day long, but when you learn how to use your energy in this way to harness the power of your mind and these energetic centers within your body, you're so fucking powerful.
Yes.
That's how you heal the collective. That's how we begin to heal the world. Make love not war, but like let's actually use this information that we know is possible to change the paradigm.
Mm-hmm. And the paradigm has already been shifting from learning through suffering into learning through creation, which
Yes.
is in that sexual region. So
Yep.
the earth is getting there. We're just trying to play catch up.
We just have
And
to be here to experience it.
yeah, literally, yes. Experience and just observe that experience. Doesn't need to have an answer. Just being like, oh, that happened. And I felt like that, which led to that and that, right?
Oh,
Something
yeah.
that's in our favorite book this season, The Power Path of Empowerment by Barbara
Martianak.
Martianak. We'll get it one day. We'll call her. We'll be like, hey, girl, we've been prepping the whole world for your things. But anyway, she has this quote. It says, the power of sex can make life, baby, or destroy it. So if you are, like, yes, like Victoria was saying, like, you want to get your rocks off. Hey, I'm there too. Sometimes I'm just like, there's so much of this energy in this space right now that I cannot find another use for it. I need to send it out in the world. But as Victoria said, it's in the intention. So like, yes, I can have pleasure and I can take it long and I can work on myself, or I could have this so built up that like maybe it's for the collective and I just need to pop, 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 and have that intention of this is what this orgasm is going to vibrate outward for the world, right? We've talked about emotions are the fuels behind the thoughts. So all that pleasure and emotion and sensuality is amplifying your thoughts. So what are you thinking about when you're coming? What or having physical pleasure? What are you thinking about your body? What are you thinking about the world? Right? There's two questions in here I love. It's, am I fully occupying my body and having sex of my own volition, right? That's the first question. Like, am I fully here? And like, I'm having sex because I want to. And are my sexual experiences consensual, joyful expressions of lovemaking based on intimacy, trust, and truthfulness with a partner? It doesn't mean that it needs to be monogamous, but am I in that space? Because if I'm not, and my thoughts are judgmental or degrading or whatever, that's what you are sending, not only out to loop back to yourself, but to the collective. So you need to be, and she has some really great questions for you to reflect on when it comes to your sexual experiences. And I'll put them down below because they're just too many that we could just like bounce off of and talk for forever. And maybe we will. Maybe one day we'll just be questions about sex. But right now, it's just crazy to think that you have someone else's DNA coming into your body. Then you have your energy being pumped into your body. And they're both teaching you lessons. But in that moment, those emotions are coming up and whatever your thought is what you're projecting out. And it's just like, holy shit. Sex is so complicated. So complicated. So going back to the very beginning when that girl said sex is never just sex, hell no, it's not. Not for you, not for your partner, not for the collective, dude.
Mic drop, baby. All right. Like the sun's out. I want to go get my rocks off in nature.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Masturbate in nature?
Not masturbate, but have sex in nature. Have sex.
I
I don't
feel
want
like
to say
I'm
in
not going to be
public,
having
but
sex for a long time, so I'm like,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. Thank you. But it's
It'll happen when your frequency pings you to the right person. Hopefully. Or at least pings you to someone that is going to unlock something inside you that you have to face, which is actually shitty and then makes you not want to do it, but you got to do it anyway
it's
because we're evolving.
making celibacy sound really good again.
We'll see you at season 4 when Victoria's been celibate for another 6 months.
Whew.
Well, you know what? Listen, even if you have to do it by yourself because that's what your body is calling for, orgasms literally create a healthy body and a healthy mind. It pumps out hormones that send to your nervous system for healing. It allows for realignment and grounding. So having an orgasm is good for you. Having sex, having a healthy and comfortable sex life is really healthy for your body to keep you oxygenating the body because you're taking those deep, elongated breaths. It's just a really great thing for you to stay healthy, connected, and strong in your body. So, whatever you got to do, girl, you know what I mean? 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink, you know?
You know, I love my colonics, but I don't really like it.
I'll stay silent on that one. I'll just say I'm very comfortable with Andrew, and I love that we can be honest and explore and say, hey, I maybe think about this. Maybe can we try it? And then the other person's like, I don't know, but sure. And then we're both like, yup. So
Oh, wait, you forgot to put out the warning to Andrew's parents not to listen.
too late. You're here now. If you made it this far. Oh, I was going to say something, but that's so weird. Never mind. Scratch that. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Um,
Well, that's everything I had on sex. I mean, I could talk about sex forever, but
Same.
we are coming close to our time.
I am always thinking about it. I'm very excited. This season has been one of debunking. Wait, what did I even call it? Hold on. Throughout the entire season, I've been talking a lot about hormones. So
Mhm.
next week, we're going to be joined by Dr. Kelsey Stang, who is a naturopathic doctor focused on hormone health, cycle
Mhm.
tracking, fertility prep. And we're so excited to have her on and continue the conversation on hormones because I think we all know the power of hormones to seduce us
Mhm.
into thinking we want to be with someone when really we maybe don't. And the effects of birth
Mm.
control on that, I mean, have been scientifically proven that women on birth control and who go off then are no longer attracted to their partner. So,
Mm.
fun little fact.
Thankfully, I did not hear that. Thankfully, that did not happen to Andrew and I. I
Good.
did not know that. Yeah, I am so excited about having Dr. Kelsey on. She is just an incredible human. So, I also just want to say we're coming to the close of season 3 here, ladies and gentlemen, and all people in between.
Crazy.
And I just want to say thank you because we see our followers growing. We have been hearing a lot of feedback, a lot of people loving that spooky story. So, I think we're going to have to drop another one. We
Yes.
know that we're closing out season 3, but hit us up if there's a topic you want us to talk about. We are always down for a bonus episode. We just know we need time from our weekly scheduling at some points. So thank you so much for sharing because your prescription of frequency broads needs to be shared with others. It's a good medicine. Give it out. Say, hey,
Be
buddy,
the
here you go.
be the plug.
Be the drug dealer, you know what I mean?
Well,
Of our frequency only.
and your frequency too.
Yes. Take what we say, make it your own, and share it with others. Okay, we could just go on about this forever. We love you. I'm so happy. I have a feeling another episode about sex will be here next season. So be prepared.
Yeah,
Be prepared.
always.
We love you. Go have an orgasm. Goodbye.